Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day to start things off. Tom Lee, who we've spoken about on this channel many times before, believes that the introduction of Ethereum futures will have the opposite effect on the price trajectory of the top two cryptocurrencies. Lee's declaration comes as the CBOE global markets gears up to launch Ethereum futures contracts in addition to its Bitcoin futures trading, which debuted in December of 2017. According to Business Insider, Tom Lee, a managing partner at Fundstrat Global Advisors, believes that Ethereum futures trading will alter the price narrative of the market. Drawing from the introduction of similar products for Bitcoin, Lee predicts that Ethereum might follow the same trajectory. When Bitcoin futures debuted at the end of 2017, Bitcoin's price rose to a new all-time high of around, it was like 19,860, depending on which chart you look to. I think one of them even got to 19,940 or something like that. After that, the top-ranked cryptocurrency took a nosedive, reaching below $6,000 the following February. Presently, Bitcoin is down more than 60% from its mid-December 2017 all-time high. Lee is basing his analysis on the way cryptocurrency futures trading works, giving traders the ability to bet on the price movement of a coin without having to own it. By this logic, Ethereum futures trading will provide an opportunity for bears to short Ether. According to Lee, Ethereum futures will provide a new stomping ground for bears, relieving the pressure on Bitcoin. This was said by Lee, and I quote, "Since December of last year, if one was bearish on any aspect of crypto but did not want to own the underlying asset, they could short or bet against Bitcoin. They can now short or bet against Ethereum, means the net short of Bitcoin in futures would fall," end quote. However, another point worth noting is that Bitcoin futures offered by the CBOE are cash settled, meaning that there is no transfer of the underlying asset. Although the market accounts for a small portion of the total BTC trading area, so it is unlikely that Bitcoin futures trading had any direct impact on the Bitcoin price trajectory. The price of Ethereum is most likely to be directly affected by a strengthened or weakened dollar, or an increase decrease in ICO token utility. There's a lot to kind of cover here. I'm going to completely pass on the entire ICO front or the strong and or weak dollar. That's an entirely different conversation that we're not going to get into in this video. A lot of people, I think, not that they were confused, but I see a lot of people asking me questions as far as the futures and ETFs and stuff like that. And I am not a, a professional by any means on this. Like, I have all the information that I have from having read, trying to gather as much knowledge as I possibly have. But pretty much what it comes down to is the reason a lot of people have been saying, how is it possible for anyone to kind of do these things with futures or ETFs when all of this has to go through the blockchain? The issue is that Wall Street is a completely different entity from a blockchain, where things are settled on the blockchain and you can see that they're happening. You know, you can go to, I think it's blockchain.com, and you can see all the transactions that are currently happening on the Bitcoin blockchain. There's also one for Ethereum. There's one for every single coin, more or less. There should be. You should be holding a coin that where you can see the transactions, and the transactions are transparent. What it comes down to is that I said before that these would be settled on paper, and people didn't understand. Someone thought I said a paper wallet. No, it comes down to the fact that you can bet against them now simply by telling other people that you want to bet against them. You can enter it into a computer, you can write it down on a piece of paper, you can write it down on a certificate. You don't actually have to own the asset, and this is part of the problem. This is why a lot of people are a little hyped right now for the when ICE actually makes their, I think it's supposed to be the Bitcoin ETF or futures, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember exactly which one that it is at the moment. It's going to be physically settled, in that you have to have the asset in order to be able to do this. The problem is that as we draw closer to the eventual Ethereum futures and or ETF, what's going to happen is that we're going to have to really cross our fingers and actually hope that these are going to be physically settled, because there are a lot of tricks that happen in Wall Street. You don't actually have to even hold the thing that you're trying to bet against, and more so if you are you have to understand that this is just all about money. This, like I said before in another video, this isn't, no one in Wall Street really cares about the future of decentralization. It comes down to, I have a friend or corporation who holds tons of Bitcoin. I'm going to short Ethereum. I have a friend who is exclusively mining Ethereum. He's put $100 million into it. I'm going to short Bitcoin. It's just a tug of war back and forth. And Ethereum has sadly at this point found itself in a position where it is no longer the underdog. It is now proudly proclaimed as the possible successor to Bitcoin, or whatever you kind of want to call it. So what this is going to come down to is that what he says pretty much is that as this comes out, people will start to begin to bet against Ethereum, which would take some of the pressure off of Bitcoin, which could potentially allow the price of Bitcoin to drive up. If you have noticed over the last couple of weeks, or even the last 5, 6, 7 days, if you noticed, there was a moment where Ethereum was actually going up in value and all the other coins were also skyrocketing. It's because that now Ethereum also has all of these coins linked to it, where before, the problem was in 2017 is that Bitcoin had the entire market. If Bitcoin moved up and down, the entire market had to move with it. The same thing is now happening for Ethereum. No one really knows what's going to happen, but if we use the past as any indication of what could potentially happen, it's probably fairly certain that a lot of people are going to be shorting Ethereum the same exact way, or betting against Ethereum, if you want to say it this way, the same way that they did for Bitcoin. No one knows exactly what their motives are going to be, but we have to hope, or rather, not so much hope, just eventually we will have more things that are physically settled before the moment it is completely possible to not only bet against Bitcoin and lower the prices as we've seen over the last couple of months, but it's going to be the same exact thing for Ethereum. And it's also possible, depending on what you're doing in the cryptocurrency or even the Wall Street space, when it comes to these coins, you can simply write certificates and say that you own X amount of Bitcoin, even though you don't actually have that much Bitcoin. You can sell it off to other people, and this causes an inflation in the amount of Bitcoin that are actually out there that actually aren't out there, and this causes the price of Bitcoin to drop even lower. So this is no one really knows what's going to happen. Yeah, it's kind of a very not messed up situation, but we need to try to make sure that Wall Street is at least not regulated, but that someone is there to kind of check them, because this could get out of hand really, 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 really fast. Even more so, Mr. Antonopoulos is in the news today. This has to do with what we were talking about with India about a day or two ago. Andreas Antonopoulos has labeled plans for India's central bank to create an identity-based national digital currency as incredibly dangerous as details emerge of a fresh crackdown on cash. In comments on Twitter on the 30th of August, the well-known cryptocurrency educator said India's history of limiting cash availability to citizens enforcing through surveillance measures via its Aadhaar system would lead to the death of democracy. He said centralized digital cash backed by centralized identity in a country that has demonstrated dangerous authoritarianism when it comes to currency. End quote. This is actually his tweet thing right here. Aadhaar, I hope I said that correctly, is a biometric identity framework developed to track Indian status through a 12-digit number for each citizen. It is the world's largest biometric ID system with 1.2 billion participants. I might not call them participants. Since India began a sudden and highly controversial demonetization policy in November of 2016, the Reserve Bank of India, or the RBI, has hinted it wants to reduce cash usage in favor of transactions linked to identity, ostensibly to reduce fraud and money laundering, because these are always the arguments. It always, whenever you listen to an entity or a higher up or some type of mega force on this planet declaring that they want to make something illegal or that they are afraid of something, the only argument that they usually come down to, I don't know if you, how many of you were alive around the time of the 90s or, whatever the case might be. The argument in the 90s was drugs. It was people buying other people on the street. That's a nice way of saying it. or the drug trade. Oh my gosh, we have to stop this. It's very dangerous. And now the entire thing that they're when it comes down to imposing controls or regulations or laws, it comes down to we need to reduce fraud. We have to reduce fraud. Fraud is hurting everyone in the entire world. Fraud needs to be stopped. Or it comes down to money laundering. How dare you do what with your own money what you want to do? You have to let the government know. The government needs to know exactly what you are doing with your money. And these are always the arguments that we have right now. At the same time, the bank has taken a hardline stance on cryptocurrencies, which are beyond its direct control, such as Bitcoin. We spoke about that many times before. I said I thought it was quite interesting that they have a lot of, not a lot, but they have things around blockchain, or they're talking about blockchain. And then when we got wind that they were talking about creating their own government central bank backed digital currency, I said this is going to set off a lot of alarms, especially because they had been doing so much to make sure that all the other crypto in the country could not be touched. I don't know exactly what the police were doing there, but I know that it wasn't easy, and it is still not easy for people to be able to acquire cryptocurrencies. Now, the RBI is pursuing the creation of a state-sponsored digital currency, this time to combat alleged costs of printing and managing India's cash supply. They said rapid changes in the landscape of the payments industry, along with factors such as emergence of private digital tokens and the rising cost of managing fiat paper or metallic money, has led central banks around the world to explore the option of introducing fiat digital currencies. This was said in its annual report. They said, once again, in India, an interdepartmental group has been constituted by the Reserve Bank to study and provide guidance on the desirability and feasibility to introduce a central bank digital currency, end quote. The news comes as media reports circulate over the lack of success of the 2016 demonetization, which sources say has failed to achieve its intended aims. If you ever have time, I know I say this often, but it's nice to expand your mind. Try to watch documentaries on when this happened. I remember the moment that it actually happened, and it was very abrupt the way that they went about it. I think the government tried to get rid of one of the highest rupee bills that they had, and they said the reason they were doing this is because too many people in the country were transacting in cash. They weren't paying enough taxes, and the reason that they got rid of it was because that so many people were using it. They didn't like it, and they were afraid of people essentially running off with suitcases filled of these bills, and the government pretty much not knowing about it. In the documentaries, if you start watching them, they ask people what they thought about this, and the problem is that most people transacted in this. This was kind of like, depending on where you live in the world, let's say you live in Europe or America, this was kind of like the $20 bill or maybe the 20 euro. It's a bill they are going to see quite often, and when you take it away from people and tell them to use singles or tell them to use the €1 coin, especially if you're buying something that may cost around like 45 or 50, you go, no, there's a huge problem here. At the same time, the scheme caused hardship for any ordinary Indians, with a finance minister under India's previous government claiming it had led to the loss of over 100 lives. People were not too excited that this was happening. I had something to say about this, and I completely lost track because it's such a huge thing. Like, you can't really envelop everything that's happening here in just one video. This is going to cause a lot of problems, forcing people to choose something like this. I think they're going about it the complete wrong way. Other people, I'm not from India. I have never lived in India, so I cannot say from my own personal experience. And when I watch documentaries, or when I hear the opinions of people in the comment section who are from India and they tell me certain things, I have a feeling that this is probably not going to work out. I wish there was some type of way for them to, that is the people in the country, to kind of circumvent this, to get completely around it. Because what's going to happen if this does end up happening is that they're going to try and crunch very hard and ban all other cryptocurrencies and say that only theirs is applicable, and this is going to cause a lot of problems, especially nobody wants a system where everything is tracked. Nobody wants a system where your eyes are scanned, your fingerprints are needed in order to open up a bank account or to get into a vault or to open up a door or to be able to, when you can't really do anything in private. This is why, once again, I'm thinking about, I think I've probably more than said enough about that, about when it comes to like what's going to happen to a lot of these currencies and what's believed that is going to happen to these currencies. When you force people to do something that they don't want to do, usually bad things end up happening. If this actually ends up going through, I hope it takes around 2 to 3 years, like I said before, simply because within that same amount of time, Bitcoin or any other crypto could be a lot larger, and this could lead to a lot of people in these countries to kind of swing towards Bitcoin rather than some other cryptocurrency. This is getting very hot very quick. Like I told you, it's all a little weird to me. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Crypto's only 9 years old, and now we have governments talking about creating government centralized cryptocurrencies. Centralized completely being out of the equation, but the fact that people will be more controlled by this, and it's kind of not a good thing. And I hope that this discussion continues, not even just on my channel, but if you are listening and you have your own cryptocurrency channel, please talk about this as well so that more people understand what's going on, because this could be a problem in 20, 30, 40 years in other countries or other continents where people or governments are adamant that they want to retain more control. Because I told you guys before, whether you believe so or not, the reason this is all happening is because crypto is a threat. These coins up here, not including Naga, whatever, pose an actual threat to the way that we've been living for a very long time. This plans on completely changing banking. This plans on making the internet accessible to everyone around the world, and this is trying to become either a store of value or something that will allow people around the world to have access to their own money, to be able to do with it what they want, when they want, how they want. And this is where we get all those predictions of $1 million. A lot of people say Bitcoin can never hit $1 million. If people around the world and hyperinflation continues and people end up realizing, hey, my country's currency is trash, is constantly devalued, I want to put my money into something that could either go up in value or completely stay the same so that I'm not losing any money. This is why this is all happening. Don't assume that governments or countries are creating their own cryptocurrencies because they like the sound of it. They like, to look at numbers on a screen. They're doing it for control, because we've had a lot of meetings and stuff like this before where governments and organizations have come together and they spoke about openly. They said, is this going to destroy our national currency? Is there a threat of this? And most of the people on the panel end up saying, if left unchecked, there could then be an issue sometime in the future. And this is why, I don't know, I could go on about this forever. I may make a video where I kind of ramble on about it, because it's very, this needs to be spoken about. This can't be something that kind of lays on the sides and people just aren't, it hits everyone by surprise in 15 years and no one has ever heard about it. Hopefully, if everyone hears about it, knows about it, understands it a bit more, should the situation arise, we not know how to protect ourselves, but are just kind of more prepared for whatever situation might come from this. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Next up, Tether is in the news. On the 31st of August, Poloniex Exchange, a US-based cryptocurrency exchange platform ranked as the 25th largest digital currency, announced the listing of the USDT trading pairs on their official Twitter handle. The new USDT trading pairs are already listed on the exchange, including 0x, Lisk, Golem, Dogecoin, and Siacoin. Dogecoin has been, I don't have the thing over here, Dogecoin has been just really popular over the last couple of weeks. It happens in like spurts depending on what time of, I wish there was a metric for people to be able to write down, because every single year this happens. I wish there was someone would write it down exactly when Bitcoin, Dogecoin sees like a huge spike in price and like tons of excitement, if that correlates to some type of a bull run, because this also happened last year as well. Dogecoin shot up for no apparent reason. This year is because someone is doing I think there's a hard fork and they're calling it Doge Ethereum, if I'm not mistaken. And also, I think Dogecoin also got listed on a couple of other places and people are going completely mad for it. Circle, a peer-to-peer payments technology which owns Poloniex, on their Medium blog stated, and I quote, "While we continue to focus on improving the performance of Poloniex and being a curated set of assets to the exchange, We also attempt to implement the top requests of our customers and project developers where possible, end quote. Tether is currently the 8th largest cryptocurrency by market cap, according to CoinMarketCap. CoinMarketCap, at the time of writing, Tether is at 99 cents. I don't know why that was significant. Why at all they had to put that price out there. The point is, these are the new Tether coins that are tethered to Tether on Poloniex, I guess, which is kind of significant. I told you guys before, we never really hear about 0x ever. I know people in the comment section have told me the greatness about what is 0x and how amazing that it is. Point is, typically in the news, it's never there. The other ones, I guess, are kind of Sia Coin is also that, and Made Safe Coin have been trying to like fight each other over the last couple of months. Dogecoin is Dogecoin. Golem, not really any news about that as well, or neither about Lisk either. But it's still nice to hear that there are still additional pairs being put on different exchanges. I'm very glad that we are slowly at least moving away from 2017, where everything was just tied to Bitcoin. That was an absolutely insane, crazy problem. Next up, Bitcoin Cash is in the news. This is following the last time that we spoke about Bitcoin Cash. On the 1st of September, a community-driven stress test was conducted by Bitcoin Cash's team. The test consisted of an overall number of transactions equivalent to 2.1 million, with a block size of 10 MBs for most of the transactions and above 21 MB for the rest of them. It was observed that the fees remained stable despite the increase in volume of the transactions. According to BitInfo charts, the transaction fee went down from 0.02 to 0.001. The results are indicated that Bitcoin Cash accounted for 64% of all the cryptocurrency transactions during a 24-hour period. And this is the chart that we spoke about in the last video. And here's another chart. However, against the charts on BitInfo charts, Dan Larimer, who is the CEO or CTO of the 5th largest cryptocurrency known as EOS, implied that Blocktivity.info gave different data altogether. His comment stated that the weekly average for cryptocurrency transactions was the highest for EOS, with a total contribution of 49.3%. Here, Bitcoin Cash was only accounted for 11.5% of the total transactions. Here is his chart. Pretty much what it comes down to, for those who were not here or did not see the last video or whatever, Bitcoin Cash decided to have a stress test for their blockchain to show how great their blockchain was, how much stress could be put on it, how many transactions could flow through it during a 24-hour period without the blockchain completely being destroyed and being run over. It was to show how great the blockchain was. But apparently, according to Dan Larimer, who also created, I think, Blockstream, if I'm not mistaken, and also Steem, he says, or rather, according to their data, EOS was actually the dominant coin, which leads us to is or are the people behind Bitcoin Cash lying? Were the other websites just trying to boast about Bitcoin Cash? Especially when the thing that probably really hurts, especially about this chart, is that not only is EOS accounting for around 50% of all the transactions happening through all the blockchains, Steem actually beats out Bitcoin Cash. So that is also, no one knows for sure. Everyone is going to have their own different numbers and stuff like that. But the Bitcoin Cash team has been criticized for quite some time for using often not so honest methods. That's not to say that this was not the most honest of their things that they've done before, but before in the past, we know on their website when they were trying to get people to, they offered coins for sale. They had Bitcoin Cash listed just as Bitcoin, and the number one coin right now called Bitcoin, they had listed as Bitcoin Core. This was to confuse people. Roger Ver and a number of other people said that this was not so, that they did it to let people know that Bitcoin Cash was actually the true Bitcoin. But like I said in another video, Bitcoin Cash seems desperate now. And I don't mean that in a mean way. Like, I really honestly don't. I am completely, at this point in the crypto world, I just want any coin. If you can do it, prove it, and just go for it, become the number one coin. But as of now, Bitcoin Cash's team is constantly coming forward with news that they can do this and their blockchain can do this. And then someone else ends up looking a day and a half later saying, that's wrong, that's incorrect. Who knows exactly what the thing is right now, but this now seems like an EOS versus Bitcoin Cash type thing, especially because Cardano was also doing a versus, like a Street Fighter type thing. A whole bunch of all the coins are just fighting each other, trying to make sure that there's no mud on their face whenever we do have the next dramatic, insanely awesome bull run. To finish things off, Google and also Ethereum are also in the news. Internet search giant and monster Google has added Ethereum to its big data analytics program called BigQuery. Making the announcement in a blog post on Saturday, the company said that while an API exists for commonly used functions, such as checking transaction status or wallet balances, it's not so easy to access all of the data stored on the Ethereum blockchain. The post continues to say that, perhaps most importantly, the API doesn't allow for viewing blockchain data in aggregate. Aiming the new service to provide more of a big data window into Ethereum, Google said, and I do quote, "A visualization like this is useful for making business decisions, such as prioritizing improvements for the Ethereum architecture itself. Is the system running close to capacity and due for an upgrade? To balance sheet adjustments, how quickly can a wallet be rebalanced?" End quote. The software system Google has built on its cloud platform does several things. It synchronizes the Ethereum blockchain to computers running parity. It pulls data from the Ethereum ledger on a daily basis, including the results of smart contract transactions, and it denormalizes and stores partitioned data to BigQuery for easy and cost-effective exploration. In some examples of why the addition may be useful and or interesting to users, Google set out several examples showing that, for one, CryptoKitties smart contract transactions are by far the most numerous on the Ethereum network. It further adds a visualization for pedigrees of accounts that own more than 10 CryptoKitties. I think they have like an actual chart here. This is the visualization of the, I assume that the ones that are in color are the ones that actually own more than 10 CryptoKitties. This is the actual thing that they posted about them doing this with Ethereum or for Ethereum, depending on how you kind of want to look at it. They have charts and stuff over here. I'm actually going to put this in the description below just in case anybody is looking for it, so you don't have to look for it. All the information is right here, so you can read through it whenever you have free time. They also have a visualization of, they also have something about Omise Go over here, which is also kind of cool. And they have this is supposed to be Ethereum, this thing right here. This is supposed to be the entire network visualized, more or less. It looks completely insane, but it looks like a rainbow fish or something like that. Anyway, there have been a lot of rumors for quite some time about Google and Ethereum, and now rumors are going to start running rampant, I'm sure, because Google did this for Ethereum, or rather, why did they not do this for other blockchains, but they chose Ethereum? Ethereum, I think, has the greatest chance of really being like one of the major blockchains that like exist for like a very long time. The talk of longevity in the cryptocurrency community is a very big thing right now. How long will a project last you actually have your money in? I think Ethereum has a very bright future. The fact that Google did this and they spoke about this and they like made sure to actually post about it as well, and they didn't do this for other cryptocurrencies, at least for me, indicates that they probably also have their hand in the cookie jar. They're definitely looking into Ethereum. Whether they're going to use Ethereum or integrate Ethereum or allow it as a payment method, no one knows, but this is quite interesting if you want to or like to read between the lines. Alrighty, everyone, that is definitely going to do it for this video. There was still a lot more news. I'm very shocked at how much news do we actually have coming out of the weekend. We typically don't have a lot at all, but lo and behold, the news just keeps on flowing. Hope you all enjoyed. I hope you guys are having a great day, morning, afternoon, and or evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. Thank you once again for watching and or listening, depending on how you absorb this information. And I will talk to you all soon. See you.